And welcome to Living the Tiny House Life. I'd like to introduce Pearson. We'd like to thank all of our sponsors, especially Whole Foods, Hannah Solar, City of Decatur, Fontes Water. Decatur Tiny House Festival is brought to you by Tiny House Atlanta. We would ask that you not bring anything but water in, no food or any colored beverages. And if you have any questions and are not able to talk to the speaker afterwards, we'll have 3x5 cards up here and outside if you want to put your contact information down, and the question or concern that you have, we'll make sure that the speakers get that. I'd like to introduce John and Finn Kernohan. John and Finn are the founders of the United Tiny House Association and Georgia Tiny House Festival, and are co-organizers of the upcoming 2016 Florida Tiny House Festival. They're also members of the American Tiny House Association and serve as Georgia contacts for the National Tiny House Association. They not only talk the talk, but they walk the walk by living 24/7, 365 for the past 4 years in their 304 square foot beloved cabin, which they built almost entirely themselves. John and Finn continue their support of the tiny house community with their free membership organization and their not-for-profit tiny house festivals. Jewel took her long-standing dream of a lighter, freer, mobile lifestyle and designed a life in a tiny house she loves. After downsizing her lifestyle over the course of 10 years, she built a beautiful 360 square foot tiny house that she now calls home. A project manager and consultant by day, she shared her journey on HGTV's Tiny House Big Living and continues to share her tiny living experiences and hopes to encourage others to follow their dreams. Please welcome him.
Okay, so if we need to stand up, just let us know. We've been a little bit lazy, but if we need to be better, you just let us know. What we're going to do is kind of interview ourselves. I've compiled some of the frequently asked questions about tiny living that we're going to all answer. We'll do that for a while, and then we'll stop and allow you all to ask us any questions that we may have missed. So if that works for you, we'll get started. So again, let me know if we're not loud enough or if we need to stand up and quit being lazy. So the first question that we usually get asked is, tell us about yourself and what led you to tiny living, and whether you're in a tiny house on wheels or on a foundation. So kind of like my bio said, I've been, when my daughter was young, I knew I wanted to have a lighter lifestyle. I wanted to do things a lot easier. Once I got her settled and grown, I knew I wanted to be a little bit irresponsible. You can't be irresponsible when you're raising a child. So I wanted to just be irresponsible and do me. So got her settled. She's a Harvard Law graduate, so I did what I needed to do for her. And thank you. And so I started after she left to go to undergrad, I sold my house. It was 4-bedroom, 3-bath. Over the course of 10 years, I went down to a 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and just ended up 1-bedroom, 1-bath, and in a tiny house. And it's just been, for me, the freer, lighter lifestyle, so that even if I'm not moving my house, I have the freedom to move myself about because my expenses and my lifestyle, it's a lot lighter. This is Finn.
Hi there, my name is Finn. Right, so what's the question again, Joe?
Tell us about yourself and what led you to tiny living.
Right, okay, what led me to the tiny living? So first of all, I don't like cleaning. So tiny house, less cleaning. That's just me. And also, you know where your husband at all times. So that's also handy. So how about
Happy wife, happy life. Literally because my wife said so. Seriously, I was living in a monolithic 2,500 square foot home down in Miami. I had a full apartment that I didn't rent out on the back. My wife and I were dating. She first visit to the States, she was living in London. and she walked into the house, and I think within the first hour or so, we were talking, and she said, I don't know where this relationship's going, but I'm not cleaning this place. And me being the egotistic, money-grubbing, you know, I thought the dollar was the answer to everything back then type guy. I egotistically spouted off, well, I'll hire somebody. And my wife was like, I'm not going to have somebody clean my house either. So came right back with, well, what do you think? We're going to live in this dirty house? And she said, no, I think you're going to sell this place and get something small. And that was the seed for us going tiny, because I just lived in excess, and my wife was opening the window and opportunity to me to see there was just a different way to live. And I'm a happier person for it.
The second?
Our second question, what do you think the purpose is of the tiny house movement? And so this is kind of a trick question. It's a question that I battle with people all the time on. There is no one purpose for the tiny house movement. It is whatever it is to that person that is building, that's planning to live it. For some people, it's about an inexpensive house, and they want the lifestyle that building an inexpensive house. For some people, it's about a retirement plan, and they want tiny luxury, and they spend more on their house. For some people that are supporting homelessness, they're building homes for the homeless people. It can mean whatever it means to that person that is building it. And there should be no, if I spend X amount of dollars on my house and it's a lot more than somebody else is planning to spend, then that's my business. Unless I borrow money from you, it's it's kind of my business. And I don't think we need to pigeonhole it into it being one movement. It's whatever it is to whoever that person is.
I'm going to pass it to my husband because he's good at dealing with their business size. I'm just entertaining.
I'm going to stand for this one, because getting in this tiny box got me totally out of my box. I lived in this weird world in my head where I thought making all sorts of money and being a jerk and being angry all the time, that was life. And getting in this little box that we call our house has given me an opportunity to grow and just see things and to do things. I would not be here today. I would not be with my wife. I would not be 10 inches smaller around the waist and 80 some pounds lighter. I would be in that hospital in 2009, June, laying there with all those IVs, ill, because all I did was work to make money. So I think for a lot of people, when we go tiny and we get in our little tiny box, we're suddenly expanding and getting outside of this box. And whatever that means for each individual, whether it's saving money, whether it's getting out of a weird situation, whether it's to travel, whether it's to inspire folks nationally, whether it's to be happy as a couple, that's what I think it is just getting out of our little worlds and seeing the world in a whole different way. And that's what I've experienced with everybody that we've met in all of our travels in the tiny community, is everybody we meet has a totally different reason, but I always find out that what they were doing before they became a tiny houser and what they're doing now, it's a pretty cool journey that everybody's gone through. So, and I'm doing this without my glasses on because I was told it was rude to have my sunglasses on, so I'm afraid I'm going to fall over because I'm blind right now. So.
Okay, so we kind of answered the next question, which was, what does tiny living mean to you? Is there anything else you want to add to that? Or did you kind of cover that in that same, you covered it? Okay, I think I covered it too. So then we'll move to our next question. What has been the hardest part of the adjustment to tiny living for you? And I always say there really wasn't an adjustment period for me because I had been downsizing over the course of 10 years, so it was a gradual process. So my mindset was that I'm doing this, and this was my plan. I had gone to a 1-bedroom, 1-bath before I moved into my tiny house, and then I spent a year and a half, almost 2 years, of researching tiny houses and paying. that's absolutely how I designed my tiny house. And so moving into it was just the next step because I had paid attention, I had done the upfront work, and I encourage anybody that's going to downsize and do tiny living. And again, yesterday I talked about it not necessarily being a tiny house, it can be your lifestyle where you're just downsizing your lifestyle. But I encourage you to do the upfront work, and there's less of an adjustment as you go through it.
I talked so much I make you forget the question. What has been the hardest part of the adjustment to tiny living?
My clothes. I have so many clothes and I hardly wear any, but it's just me. Closet me, which is like, I'm addicted to shopping, I suppose. And so I just have to either keep the one I like and sell the rest, or just, sell this one, buy another one, that kind of thing. But I'm working on it still. I live in a tiny house for 4 years and still have a lot of clothes. So I'm working on it. My husband will tell you about it.
No kidding. Customs pulled us to the side when we landed in the States with all of our luggage. They wanted to know what was going on. True story. For me, the same thing. I had this big old house in Miami. I had so much stuff. After my wife and I dated for a year, she wanted to know what this one room was that I wouldn't open the door. Everybody has a junk drawer in their kitchen at one time. I had a junk room. So I had 2 of the same rice cookers that were identical. One was still new in the box because I lost one and then I found it, but not until after I went out and bought the same exact one because I liked it so much. My wife was like, why do you have 20 place settings? And I'm like, in case I have a party. And she's like, when did you have that? Every time you have a party, you get paper plates. So my wife had me, literally, she consolidated everything. Before we even went into tiny housing, she just started consolidating everything. Then when we decided to build our tiny house, we really started consolidating everything. And it was a matter of finding out exactly what it was that I really could live with. And the things that I thought that I couldn't live with, I realize now when I look back at it, why did I even want to have that stuff around? So getting rid of a lot of stuff, and I think getting rid of so much stuff is also a way of just releasing a lot of baggage just in our lives. And I don't mean this as a negative thing, but I was talking with somebody earlier today about it. My ex-wife, who I'm very good friends with, okay, but at one time, we weren't very good friends. And she helped me in downsizing. When I look back at it, when she facilitated in getting rid of a lot of my stuff. Okay? When I look back at how upset I was, and I'm going to use an example, my college diploma. When I think about it now, it was just a piece of paper that today, for the first time, and now today for a second time, is the only time I've referred to that piece of paper in like 20 years. It's meaningless to me now. And that's how it was in downsizing. And when we built our tiny house, even though we downsized so much stuff from Miami at the time, when we really started downsizing, when we built our little 300 square foot tiny home, it was amazing when I look back now how hard it was to let go of so much stuff. Like the first, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but the first bullet that as a kid that I harvested my first year, I still had that thing. And I let it go, finally, after so many years. It was just ridiculous stuff. So to me, that was the hardest thing. And when I look back now, though, it's the most liberating thing. So.
Next question. What has been the greatest reward for you embracing the tiny lifestyle? And so for me, I'll kind of back into what they said. So I'm the tiny house that has a walk-in closet. I wasn't giving up my stuff. So I'll go. So, but I still shop. But of course, I live in a tiny house, so I can't shop maybe like I used to shop. Or if I buy something, it's a conscious decision of I'm taking this in, and what can I donate? What can I take back out? I also still have a storage unit, and what I would say is, it's a smaller storage unit, I've downsized to a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. So everything that I have is the absolute favorite stuff that I have. So I still have furniture. I have bedroom furniture. My tiny house dream is not necessarily for the rest of my life. It's kind of whatever works for me. And if I decide that I don't want to live tiny anymore or in my tiny house, I still want to have my favorite stuff. Over the course of time, and when I visit my storage now, sometimes I'll go and throw something out because, you know, I determined I don't want that anymore. But I didn't go through the process of just getting rid of everything. But as far as my expenses, what I pay for my tiny house, the land that I rent, the storage unit is still a fraction of what I pay for rent in an apartment in Uptown Charlotte. So I'm not the one that says you have to get rid of everything. That's just never my style. But the greatest reward for me has been the lightness. Being able to make decisions based on me personally. The example I gave yesterday is most of us have worked at jobs where we absolutely hate the people we work with and you want to quit every single day that you go to work. And you like to get, me and a girlfriend laugh about it because, you know, I've had the job where sometimes I just want to get on top of my desk and cuss and, you know, act up and then walk out and tell them I quit. And then you get up and you're angry about something and then you realize I got a mortgage and I gotta pay for this car and I need to sit down and I'm gonna have to suck it up. Where if your expenses are less, you can make decisions based on your personal feelings versus your expenses. And that is, you know, the best reward for me, being able to make decisions based on personal choice versus expenses.
And the question is,
What is the greatest reward for you for embracing the tiny lifestyle?
Thank you. I would say our relationship. That because before you even think about, if you have a partner, and before you even think about living in a tiny house, maybe you should ask yourself, how, you know, can I get along with my partner? Can I actually be in a tiny space with my partner, like spend most of the day with them, like seeing them all the time? Am I gonna kill them before the day's over? So, you know, that sort of thing. But to me and John, I think we kind of like very fortunate that even though we fight all the time, but you know, we still we still having fun with each other, and because we live in a small space, it allows us to be even closer. You know, he doesn't have room that he can hide away, so he can't go to the bathroom and lock himself in. I mean, he can, but no, literally he doesn't usually like cats in the bathroom, so he won't be in that. And it's kind of like the closer, the close-knit that you feel with your partner. You feel like, you know, it's us here. We have to work together if we want a peaceful house. If we want to be together, we have to work together to make this work. And it's no room to hide or run. It is about relationship. To me, I mean, I don't know about him, but
Yeah, That's right. Seriously, and this isn't rehearsed. The best part about being in the tiny house, our beloved cabin, is as a couple, that it has made us just grow. When we speak these type of events and we share with people, if you can't get along with your partner to the point where, you know, you must go and hide off in a room all by yourself for periods of time, or you need your man cave on a regular basis, you might really want to try experimenting being in a tiny house for, you know, in a closed, small space before you know, commit to it full time. Because it's just like my wife said, there's no hiding. You can go up into the loft, you know, but you're still up in the loft. I can see you. I can go in the bathroom, but she still knows that I'm in there, you know. Especially with our design, it's a huge open floor plan. If my wife had a way, there wouldn't be a wall or a door on the bathroom, but I want to be able to sit in there without her and the cat staring at me. So, and That's been a big thing. That's been a big thing for me because my entire life I've been in a position where I've been able to disappear from conflict. You know, if I didn't like something, I could just go and get away from it and go somewhere. And that's not the way it is. I've been, for the past 4 years, if there's something to deal with, I have not had that opportunity to avoid it. I've been able to embrace conflict where things get resolved. And so that's been the best thing about it. And I find with that situation too, I don't react the way I do in other situations, business situations and political situations and community situations, the way that I used to in the past. I seem to deal with them in a very more appropriate manner, in a more negotiating manner, if you will, instead of just thinking I'm going to buy the situation with intimidation or money or something of that nature. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's helped me as an individual to be normal.
We're gonna have to hold your question until we get to the question and the answer. We're probably gonna skip right over that. The next question is kind of a two-parter, and it's one of the ones you hear all the time. Do you have a composting toilet, and how do you find parking? I don't have a composting toilet. I am, when I first started building, I laughed and I said, this is probably the thing that's gonna get me kicked out of the tiny house community. I'm not for composting. I don't really know anything about it. People that have composting toilets, they say they work fine. I just never really wanted to find out. So what I have is a macerating toilet, and it has a pump in it. It actually flushes. It uses low flush water. It's not gravity fed. I have it connected to a 275-gallon container out in my backyard, and when I need to have it serviced, I call somebody that services like the porta potties, and they come and pump it. And so I took the easy route. And the second part of the question, how do you find a parking location? So that is one of the most challenging things. I would say it's absolutely not impossible, but it does take some work. So I had, and I would say it was almost a full-time job, but you know, you've got to put in some effort if you're going to make it work. So I had a running ad on Craigslist, kind of talking about who I was, what I was doing, information about my tiny house and me, and I also had, I went through neighborhoods and just kind of looked at people who had property, and I said, dear property owner, here I am, this is what I'm trying to do. If you would rent me some property, I'd appreciate it. You know, kind of a spiel about who I am so they don't think you're crazy. And I found my parking that way, from connected with a guy on Craigslist, and I've been there since October, so it's absolutely doable.
Okay, I'm gonna answer about the composting toilet, and then I think my husband will answer about the location. Yes, I have composting toilet, and I love it. I always want one. I don't know, I just feel like it's special. You know, you save water, and you deal with your own number 2, number 1, whatever. And it's actually, if you have a really good composting toilet, it's not as disgusting as you thought it would be. And also, you know, you just have to have a partner who willing to deal with shit. Sorry. John is very good. I mean, he kind of like have a gag reflection or something like every time that he had to empty one, which is, but the one that we have right now, can I say the name? Oh, the Nature Head. We have one at our tiny house, and we just amazed as how it's actually composting in there. By the time you empty it, it's just almost like powder, almost, and it's really good. And I mean, at times, John just totally against it. He just doesn't want to do with it at all. He was just like, he's a clean freak, but I am not. So, you know, if you have a chance to have a tiny house, or, you know, or even regular house, if you want to go composting toilet, let's just try it out, but just have to pick the one that are actually really good, you know, the one that we have that actually have fan, and the fan is working, the whole time to suck all the smell and also help with the composting process as well. And believe me, I mean, before we have this toilet, yeah, we have a regular toilet, and then we move our house in the wood, and I used to go in the wood. Oh, I got to wrap this one up, sorry.
So the other one is parking. We bought our own land. We own land. The zoning on it is timber where we're located at. There's another structure on our property, so our tiny house is considered a second structure. The biggest thing I can only say in this is, and we tell this to people all the time, please find a place. Please know what your game plan is. Don't be one of these folks who spend their whole tiny house life looking for a place or getting from place to place or to find a place. We've been very fortunate because we own our own land, and so it's been easy for us. But we researched it. We looked for it. We knew what we were looking for. So when we bought our land, we made sure we bought land we could put our tiny house on.
And this is where the panel disagrees, because I built first and found my land later, and it worked out perfectly. So it's kind of what works for you and what your train of thought is. So this is where our panel disagrees. Next question: what mistakes did what mistakes did you make along your journey to Tiny that you warned others against making? In my researching process, kind of when you're looking at all the information and it can be overwhelming, I think one of the things that I did initially was second guess myself and not trust the knowledge the things that I was learning, and that to me was, and then I, it was so many options, so many ways to get to stuff, instead of just trusting myself that this was gonna work for me versus, trying to find the 3 different ways to get there and then being confused. So trust yourself more in your research. The question is, again, is what? Oh,
I thought you were drywall.
Drywall. Biggest mistake we ever made was, I'm sorry? Using drywall. I would have done something different. It just weighs a ton. We didn't have any problem moving our tiny house. Everybody says drywall is going to crack, but it added a ton of weight. I mean, tons of weight, and we drywalled the whole thing. So that would be it. I would just highly recommend don't use drywall just from a weight factor.
Okay, next question. Is tiny living a short or a long-term plan for you? For me, I would say I probably don't know. I absolutely adore my tiny house, but I always say that I have adult ADD, so next week if I decide I want to do something different, I will go and do something different. I mean, I don't feel like I have to pigeonhole myself into anything, so if I change my mind, I get to change my mind. I've been in my house a year and 3 months, and again, adore it, but I feel like I can it gives me the flexibility to make some different decisions. So it's a plan.
To me, probably tiny house, remember, less cleaning.
I don't see us changing. This is where we're going to be. This is the last move for me. This is the last place I'll be living. So yeah.
So our last question that we're asking ourselves: what advice would you give to someone newly interested in living tiny? So I alluded to part of it in some of my other answers. I would say do your upfront work before you try to just go live tiny. Definitely do your upfront work. Set realistic expectations for your journey and be flexible. One of the things about tiny house living, like where John was saying, find your property up front. I went a different route and I found my property after I built, but I also knew that I was going to have to be flexible in my locations. Initially, I was in an RV park, and I knew that wasn't where I wanted to be long-term, but it gave me a temporary situation until I could find something long-term. So you have to be flexible. I would also say drown out the naysayers. This journey isn't for everyone. You can meet so many people that say, oh, I could never do that. Tiny living isn't for me. Are you crazy? I met people who asked me, was I having financial trouble? Did I need to rent a room? That kind of stuff. Drown it out. If you've done the upfront work and you know this is for you, your brother, sister, your mother might not agree with it, but if you're an adult and you're old enough to make decisions and nobody else is paying your bills, I say drown out the naysayers. Information overload, I just kind of talked about this. Trust your knowledge. There are different schools of thought on how to accomplish the same thing. Go with what you feel is comfortable for what you're trying to accomplish. And then the last thing I'll say is the value of consultations versus reinventing the wheel. If you see somebody out here who has done what you're trying to do versus reinventing the wheel, and they seem to be successful, I say spend the money to consult with them and get their expertise versus trying to reinvent the wheel, unless you're absolutely trying to do something different. That was one of the things for me. When I was researching, I was willing to spend the money to go visit people who offered consultations, to visit tiny houses so that I could make sure I knew what I was doing as far as my planning. So the question, I'm sorry, what advice would you give to someone newly interested in tiny living?
Thank you. I agree with you on flexibility. You have to be very flexible. You know, you might grow up with something different in a certain way, but then if you want to be tiny, a lot of things that you have to change or be flexible and open-minded about a lot of things that might be new to you. And money, I guess. You just have to have money just like any other thing in life. Just have enough money to be able to build a tiny house. Either, you know, you do it yourself or you buy it from somebody else. And you know, if you feel like you can do it and you love to do it and you can do it, just go for it. I mean, there's such a thing as a wrong decision. It's just, you know, just decision that you make. Just have to live with it. You know, you can always change. It's not a permanent thing. Just happy. Just be happy. Do whatever makes you so happy. Thank you.
I'm just going to basically agree with what the two ladies have already said. Self-education is important. Listen to the people around us. I grew up, my family's Amish. My grandfather was an Amish minister. My dad's a minister. They owned lumber yards. They can all build everything. Finn had all the faith in the world in me that I could build anything. And the reality is as much as I think I can build anything, I went to people and asked them questions about things and just listened to what they had to say. I educated myself more than I thought I had an education on building things, hands-on building things. There's a lot of great resources out there. Listen to them. The other thing that I can say is that there's no single one way to finance your tiny house dream. There's a million ways to do it. I don't mean finance like from a bank. I'm just saying there's so many cool ways to accomplish financially what you want to do. We meet people all the time who feel a little overwhelmed on what they think it might cost to do it. There's so many. It took us 18 months to build our tiny house, and it wasn't for any other reason other than my wife refused to allow me to go out and buy what we wanted as soon as we needed it from Home Depot. She would just find the biggest, best deals that she could, so we put the build on standby. That's how we wanted to do it. So our tiny house build, soup to nuts, cost us $12,000, and we have a beautiful Pinterest-style tiny house, if you will. So my thing about, the only thing I'm trying to say on that is don't get overwhelmed when people are telling you it costs this much or it's going to cost that much or etc. Just do what works best for you.
Okay, so we're opening it up now to audience questions for anything that we may have missed that you all, that you all may have missed. Oh, we got a call from you. No, I'll answer you. I'm on wheels. You guys are on a foundation, right? Yes. Okay. So we got your question. Okay. Yes, I'm behind you. Yes, ma'am. Hang on.
I want to know what should you look for in a tiny house? Like what qualifications should you look for?
The question is, what kind of qualifications should you look for in a tiny house builder? I would absolutely say talk to their references. If they built houses for other people, ask to speak to those people and ask about the experience of working with them, how their tiny house is all of those questions, I would most likely go with the references, and then, look at some of the other houses that they built. You guys can answer that.
We built our tiny house. We bought the exterior shell, and it was the same thing. We just researched. We went to different builders and finally decided which shell we wanted. And we based that shell on reputation, warranty, years experience. Oh, and the company was Amish run and built by Mennonites. So I knew them. They were in my family tree. So that's the only thing we did. And ours is built on skids, and we have it raised up on blocks. So it's kind of different from what Jewel did. So we did everything ourselves from there. Yes.
Yes. You got, come on. We got 20 minutes.
So the question is, living in a tiny house, how is it for dating and letting people know that I live in a tiny house? Let me see, how do I answer that question? If you know anything about me, it kind of for me is an extension of my life. If there's something that you can't deal with in my life, then you aren't the person with me. So if you have the person for me. So if you have any conflict with me living in a tiny house and understanding the concept, then you probably really don't get me at all. And so that's not even a consideration. If the question is about space, I'll answer that. I had some people that came in the tiny house that I brought here that's a smaller one, and there was a couple and they were up in the top and I could hear them whispering. And so I knew what they were asking. And so if you're asking about my tiny house and space, when I say do your upfront work, that's part of doing your upfront work. Make sure it works for everything you need to do. And I will tell you, I read an article about a couple in Charlotte that had built a tiny house, and it was a picture of them in the newspaper, and they said, oh yeah, only one of us can sit up in the loft at a time. And I'm thinking, that's not going to work for y'all very well, very long. So did that answer your question? Okay. So when I first started doing my research, it was early on. And so finding information, the style of my house, the tiny house movement has morphed since I started building my house. I was building more of a high-end tiny house. And the movement at that time, everybody was talking about, oh, if you spend more than $20,000, you've done blah, 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 blah. And so I was kind of moving into it with a little trepidation because I knew I was building an upscale tiny house. And so there were things that I was second guessing, should I be doing this, should I be doing that? Where from the research that I had done, what I was doing, the paying attention to weight and all that kind of stuff, because I hadn't seen it, I was second guessing what I was doing since it was gonna be different. And I was right on everything that I had done, just I wasn't trusting myself enough is I guess what I was saying. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Kind of touched on it a little bit, but can you talk about the actual adjustment to living in such a small space, smells, humidity, no whole room? How was it getting used to? Did you have any challenges, going from an apartment to a tiny house?
Okay, so the question is again about the adjustment. How is the adjustment from going to an apartment to a tiny house? So I am a project manager and I'm kind of over the top with everything. Like I said, I did the upfront work. I had gone to visit a 24-foot tiny house that was along the style of what I knew I had planned to build, and I realized that was going to be too small for me. So I knew I wanted a larger size bathroom. And this is where I say the value of consultations and doing your upfront work. Went there, spent the money to go visit, stayed there that afternoon, and realized that was a little bit smaller than what I wanted to do. So I knew I was going to do another 4 feet. When I went to my apartment, I actually taped off my apartment. I knew what 28 feet looked like inside my apartment. I knew what the width was inside my apartment. And when I say paying attention to how you use your space, how much time was I inside this 28-foot square, and what was inside this rectangle in my house? And for most of my movement, I was in this house, in this rectangle. My couch was there, my kitchen was there. The only thing that I didn't do was sleep in this rectangle. My bathroom wasn't there, but I had adjusted for this space in that 28 feet. And so it was, moving into the house, it was an easy breeze because I had paid attention to using all of that space. I hope, does that help? Okay. Anything you want to add to that?
I killed myself for a week. Every morning, seriously, you would think I would have just every single morning for the first 4 days, I gave myself a concussion sitting up in the bedroom, up in the lobby. And you heard me every single morning resonate, screaming every morning because I kept getting mad. Because I kept taking myself out on the rafter. Because my wife wanted the rafters to show the beams, so when we did the ceiling, when we insulated it and sealed it all in, we left about 3 inches of beams sticking out so she could have that look. And one of those beams still has my forehead on it. So for me, and I'm a big guy and I'm a clumsy kind of guy, so navigation, I literally the first year I broke my left toe twice on the heart to the wood burning stove. So to me it was just getting used to it. I'm just like a bull in a china closet, just walking around things sometimes. I don't have my wife's grace at all, so it was just getting used to it. So, but now I know, I'm like programmed. So.
So everybody, specifically, what's the deal with the urine and getting rid of that? And then for everybody, cooking, smells, I think you talked about humidity, things that they do. How you deal with it?
Okay, so on the urine, you mean like on the composting toilet? Well, okay, on our composting toilet, there's a separate bladder chamber where when it's full, you can take it out. And there's multiple ways you can dispose of it. One is if you mix it with a 50-50 ratio of water, you can go ahead and just disperse that around the perimeter of your garden, and it just works as fertilizer and watering your plants. Or you can be like Lazy John, and since we have a lot of land, you can just go off into the woods somewhere and dump it out. So there's that. To answer the second part of that question that you didn't answer, the black material from the composting toilet, once that's all broken down, we have a 55-gallon composting system that we built. We take that out every 2 or 3 months. It's time to empty it. We put it in there, and then after about 12 months, that'll come out and it'll go around the base of fruit trees. You don't want to put it on edible plants, but you can put it around like fruit trees and things. And smells, like cooking and stuff.
Yeah.
We have like, my wife being Thai and me having allergies to certain type of chilies and garlic and stuff, I have to get out of Dodge when she starts cooking because I can't breathe. We have 9 windows in our house, all of them are open. We have 2 6-foot wide barn doors on the one side of our house that we open up. We have ceiling fans, it's just, normal things. It's just something to deal with, so.
So I don't have to deal with the urine because I have the container where all of my waste, so I just have that pumped out. As far as smells in my house, I've never been a big person that fries food and that kind of stuff, so I don't deal with those smells in my house anyway. I have my cooktop, I have a cooktop and then I have a microwave convection oven. It has a fan on it. So any smells, are dissipating with the fan. I've also so humidity is a big potential problem, could be a problem in a tiny house. I have a fan installed in my bathroom, and then I have operating windows, and my space isn't that small where I'm having to be that concerned about it because I've got ventilation throughout the house. I also have an air purifier in my tiny house. And then the mini split system, if you're familiar, when we've got 5 minutes, thank you. The mini split system, when I can feel moisture sometimes in the air, just the humidity, I'm in North Carolina, it has a dry option on it. And so you cut the dry on and it kind of pulls the moisture out of the air, and that works. But you definitely need to have, especially in your bathroom, you're taking a shower, you want to have an operating window, you want to have a fan and all that kind of stuff. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You also want to do a lot of research and do a lot of smart things, talk about what are some mistakes that you make. What are some mistakes that other people make, or those that other people make, that you also want to share with them, mistakes not to make? And then the second question is, you said early living wasn't for you, and I'm wondering, well, why? Three things, the privacy, what do you feel about that?
So you missed my conversation yesterday, and I'll touch on it today. So high-level mistakes other people. The question is, what were the mistakes that we know of maybe other people made, and kind of talking to that, and then why RV living wasn't for me, and that's going to be interesting. So the mistakes that I had to help someone get their money back from a tiny house builder, and the mistake she made was not talking to people that this builder had built for before. Her house was unfortunately horribly built, and so that was where I said, do your research, talk to your builders, ask about their references, look at their work, and so that's one of the mistakes that I know somebody made. As far as the RV park, and it's part of the conversation that I had yesterday, my problem with the RV park was it was in the area in Charlotte that, as white people call it was the redneck park. And the problem that they had with me at the redneck park was absolutely because of the color of my skin. Brought my tiny house in. They had been there for many years. They lived, the person that owned the RV park invited me to be there. What his plan was to upgrade it to like a park model kind of situation. But he didn't tell the other people there. And so I come in with my tiny house, and they referred to it as the black girl in the fancy condo on wheels. And they made my life hell. And so that was the reason I left the RV park. Mistakes. Yeah, the biggest mistake I know is people not doing their due diligence in understanding the builder's skill level. I will tell. There's one more, and I won't say any numbers, but I know somebody that actually contracted with a builder online. They had a slamming website. Looks like they do a whole bunch of good stuff. When she came back to me and I looked at the website, I realized they hadn't built any of the houses that were on that website. I knew who these houses belonged to. She unfortunately sent them a lot of money, and she has nothing to show for it. So when I say do your due diligence, I say do your due diligence. And don't even go, the house that I'm talking about that somebody had to get their money back, it was actually featured on a show. So because you see a tiny house on a show, if you're not talking to that person to understand how it works, or how their experience was, don't just go, it was on HGTV. Okay, there was a question, yes ma'am. Do you experience extreme heat or cold in your house based on wheels or foundation? So the question is about climate in, I guess, your tiny house. And so this was my first winter in my tiny house. I have the mini split system that does heating and air. I have my mini split up high, so what I figured out this first winter was of course, heat rises, so my lofts were warm, and downstairs you're built on a trailer, but even though the floor is insulated, my floor was a little bit colder. So all I did was put some floor, I have some, oh God, I can't think of it's a wall unit that is, no, it's not a baseboard, an ENVI, E-N-V-I. So it goes on the wall, it kind of blends into your decor, it doesn't get hot to the touch, and that's all I needed to add downstairs to the warmth downstairs. My mini split system will freeze you out of there. So no, I don't really have any issues with that at all. And I think
Yeah, we're We're about an hour and a half from Atlanta, so you all know what the winters are, you all know what the summers are. I mean, we can be 105 heat index, we can be freezing with snow. We're out near Lake Oconee, so we get huge, big storms off the lake with wind and hail and stuff. We're 100% off grid, so when we heat during the winter, it's with our wood burning stove. Insulating everything underneath the walls was key. During the winter, my wife does not mind heat. She will sweat like the proverbial pig that knows it's for dinner, and she does not mind. For me, I need a fan, and then when it gets really hot like it is now, we will put a AC unit in the window, and then we pull it out when we don't need it, and we just put it back into the shed, and we run that off of a generator because our solar system will not drive the AC unit. And but that's basically how we keep everything warm and cool and warm during the winter, and vice versa.
One thing I'll say to that is to make sure your home is well built. My home is insulated well, and so you could absolutely have some trouble if your home's not insulated well. Yes, sir. I think you're my last question. What do you do for water? What do you do for internet? Why didn't you ask me about my TV? Because that's what the guys usually ask. So my house operates just like an RV. So I can pull it in your yard if you have some space and want me to come live there next week, I can be there. I connect to electricity, a 50 amp connection, water, I have a drinking hose, so I'm on someone's property, I connect to his power, I connect to his water, and I'm also connected to his cable and internet. I could absolutely have my own cable service, but he's such a good guy, I'm connected to him and I just pay him one price. But it's just like the RV connections. And
with us, water, I mean, it's like you would with a house. You know, you have an inlet coming in, you have a well, you're hooked to it, call it a day, keep the water pressure in there. You got water coming in, so you got water. We have a natural spring on our property. We also do rainwater collection. You may have noticed on the slides the 3-barrel configuration, that there's about 160 gallons of water there at any given moment. We aren't big on using water from the ground when we don't have to, so that is primarily for animals and the garden. You know, we grow a lot of vegetables and the such. We have 2 rainwater collection systems. We have another big 110-gallon black barrel system that we use. And what was the other part of the question? Oh, internet. We're in the middle of nowhere, so we use, originally we had a satellite internet, and dang, okay? Seriously, it's the worst thing in the world. I can't express enough how bad it is. And finally, AT&T got, we have something which people my age may remember, DSL. They finally got DSL out there. So so I say we're 100% off grid, that we now have a twisted pair of wire coming to us for DSL.
With your water connection, the one thing that you will have to do is, like, I had to dig a foot trench down so that my connection is underground, so in the winter my line's not going to freeze. But other than that, my house is plumbed just like a regular house. And I think we are at 0 time. Thank you all very much.
So our last session today